What would you do if the man who declared you brain dead, the man who almost signed away your life, was the same man sleeping with your wife? The glowing screen of her phone, clutched tight in her hand at 2 a.m., was the first crack in my perfect world. I pretended to be asleep, my heart hammering against my ribs, as she tapped out a message, a faint smile playing on her lips. It wasn't the first late-night message, nor the first time she'd flinched when I reached for her phone. But this time, a name flashed across the screen, a name I knew, synonymous with betrayal and a chilling brush with death: Thorn. Our life in New York City had been a carefully constructed facade. Sarah, my wife, a brilliant architect, and I, successful financial analyst, lived in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. We had the careers, friends, the seemingly perfect marriage. But beneath the polished surface, a rot had begun. It started subtly, with her increased late nights at the office, the vague excuses, the sudden obsession with her appearance. I dismissed it as stress, the demands of her high-pressure job. I was a fool. The humiliation began long before I knew the truth. It was in the way she'd pull away from my touch, the distant look in her eyes, the subtle shift in her tone when she spoke to me. I felt like a ghost in my own home, a silent observer to a life that was slowly slipping away. The man I was, the man who loved her unconditionally, was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece. Then came the strange behavior. She started leaving her phone face down, even when charging. Her work trips became more frequent, often extending an extra day without clear explanation. Once I found a receipt for a high-end boutique in Miami, a place she'd never mentioned visiting, tucked deep in her purse. When I asked, she snapped, accusing me of being paranoid, of not trusting her. Her defensiveness was a new, unsettling trait. The slow discovery was agonizing, 1,000 tiny cuts. I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, a violation of trust I never thought myself capable of. The texts were coded at first, inside jokes, vague plans, but then the names became clearer. Elias, Dr. Thorne. My blood ran cold. I remembered Elias Thorne, a charismatic transplant surgeon I'd met at a charity gala Sarah had organized. He was charming, handsome, and now he was in my bed, metaphorically speaking. The calls were harder to trace, but the pattern was undeniable. Long, hushed conversations, always when I was out or asleep. I found a burner phone hidden in her gym bag, its call log filled with a single, repeated number. The evidence mounted, a suffocating weight in my chest. Sarah, meanwhile, became a master manipulator. She'd turn every accusation back on me, twisting my words, making me doubt my own sanity. "You're imagining things, David. You're stressed. Maybe you need therapy." Her eyes, once full of warmth, were now cold, calculating. She made me feel like the villain for daring to question her. The villains, Sarah and Thorne, seemed untouchable. He was a respected surgeon, a pillar of the medical community. She was a successful professional, admired by her peers. Their affair was a secret, shielded by their positions and my naive trust. I felt powerless, trapped in a nightmare. I remember the night I truly broke down. I was in my study, the city lights blurring outside the window, a half-empty bottle of scotch beside me. The weight of her betrayal, the sheer audacity of it, crushed me. I wept, not for her, but for the man I used to be, for the future I thought we had. It was in that moment of utter despair that a cold, hard resolve began to form. I wouldn't just leave her. I would make them pay. My revenge began with meticulous planning, secretly gathered proof, not just for a divorce, but for something far more devastating. I hired a private investigator, a quiet, efficient man named Marcus, who specialized in corporate espionage. He tracked Sarah's movements, her clandestine meetings with Thorne, in discreet hotels in downtown Los Angeles, their stolen weekends in Miami. He found emails, hotel receipts, even a few incriminating photos. I also started digging into Thorne's professional life, his past surgeries, his reputation. I learned he had a history of arrogance, of cutting corners. Then came the accident. A sudden, severe aneurysm. Collapsed at my desk, rushed to St. Jude's Hospital in Dallas. The irony was a cruel twist of fate. My wife, Sarah, was listed as my next of kin. And the attending surgeon, the one who would make the critical decisions about my life, was Dr. Elias Thorne. I remember flashes, fragments of conversations. Sarah's tearful face, Thorne's grave pronouncements, extensive brain damage, unlikely to recover. Vegetative state. I was in a coma, but I could hear. I could feel. I was trapped in my own body, a silent witness to my own impending demise. Thorne, with Sarah's consent, was pushing for me to be declared brain dead, to harvest my organs. My organs. The thought was a chilling echo in my paralyzed mind. They wanted me gone. They wanted my life insurance, my assets, their freedom. But fate, or perhaps a higher power, intervened. A junior resident, a sharp young woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, noticed a subtle flicker in my brain activity, a deviation from Thorne's grim prognosis. She fought for more time, for further tests. Against Thorne's objections, she delayed the declaration. And slowly, miraculously, I began to recover. My recovery was a slow, painful ascent from the abyss. I feigned amnesia, playing the part of a confused, vulnerable patient. It was a strategic move, a way to observe them, to gather more evidence. I watched Sarah's feigned concern, Thorne's thinly veiled impatience. I heard their hushed conversations in the hallway, their plans for my estate, their future together. The rage simmered beneath my calm exterior, a cold fire fueling my resolve. Once I was strong enough, I set my traps. I had Marcus leak Thorne's questionable medical practices to a rival hospital board member, anonymously, of course. I also contacted a tenacious medical malpractice lawyer, a woman known for taking down powerful figures. I provided her with Marcus's findings, and crucially, my own detailed account of Thorne's rush to declare me brain dead, corroborated by Dr. Sharma, who, disgusted by Thorne's behavior, became my secret ally. The public exposure was brutal. The story broke in the Dallas Morning News, then went national. Prominent surgeon accused of malpractice. Collusion in brain death case. The article detailed Thorne's history of negligence, his unethical conduct in my case, and the shocking revelation of his affair with my wife, who stood to gain millions from my death. The medical board launched a full investigation. The hospital suspended Thorne, his career in ruins. Sarah's world imploded. The divorce papers, served publicly, detailed her infidelity and her complicity in Thorne's scheme. Her architectural firm, once prestigious, lost major clients. Her social circle, once vibrant, evaporated. Friends turned their backs, disgusted by her greed and betrayal. She faced legal action, not just from me, but from the hospital for her role in the scandal. Her reputation, her career, her entire life was utterly destroyed. I saw her once, months later, in a coffee shop on a quiet street in Chicago. She looked hollow, her eyes vacant, her once vibrant blonde hair dull. She was alone, nursing a cold cup of coffee, a ghost of the woman I once loved. I walked past her, unnoticed, a silent observer to the wreckage I had wrought. The revenge was complete, but it left a cold, empty space where my heart used to be. The silence of her ruined life was the only sound I heard. The end.